Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this double twist macrame bracelet. So I made mine in two different colorways here to show you how they can look quite different from each other depending on what materials that you mix together. And what I'm also doing with this one is finishing it off using a button and loop closure so it's nice and easy to take on and off. And also that button adds a nice decorative touch as well. Now I'd love to hear what you think of them in the comment section down below, but if you want to learn how to make it, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we need. Now I have my 0.5mm s-lon cord here that I'm going to be using for the macrame, and I'm using this lovely teal colour. And then I have two different sizes of beads here. The first ones are some purple coated faceted hematite gemstone rounds and they're 6mm in size. So they're going to be the beads that are running down through the whole centre of the bracelet with the macrame on either side. Now just make sure that you check the holes in the beads that you use are large enough for two lengths of the cord to go through. And then I have some 2mm copper metal spacer beads here. They're going to be the embellishment on the edges. You can also choose to leave these out. And then finally I have a shank button here that I'm going to use for the clasp. So I'm going to have the material list and links as well in the description box down below so you can check that out. But otherwise let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. And then we'll need some lengths of our s-lon. So what I have here is 4 lengths of about 1.5 meters each, and these are mainly going to be the holding cords. And then we need another 2 lengths here of about 2 meters each, and these are mainly going to be working cords. And then we'll need another working cord of about 4 meters, and this is going to get doubled over. So then we need to start on making the loop. So what I have here is 2 lengths of my holding cords first of all. And then what I've done is we need to make sure the ends are even on them. So line them up and then we need to fold them over. So put all the ends together to find the midpoint of your cords. So I have that here, and then what I've done is I've already attached that to my macrame board here. So across the middle. So I have somewhat even lengths going out to either side, and then I have the midpoint of these cords right here that I can start working with. And then we need to grab our longest working cord and then again put the ends together, so we're folding it over in half to find the midpoint, because we need to start from that again so we have even lengths to work with. And then we need to attach this onto our holding cords. And I'm going to do that using a lax head knot. So this kind of loop in the middle of the cord that I'm holding on to, I'm going to put that from top below those 2 holding cords on my board, and then put my fingers through from the bottom here, come through and grab the ends of the cord and pull them all the way through this little loop in the middle of the cord, and then we can just pull this tight so you get this kind of little pretzel shape, and as you pull it tight we get a lax head knot, and now this cord is attached to the holding cords. And this is then our starting point. So what we need to do now is basically make a row of knots here that we can then turn into our loop. So tighten that, and then what you'll find is the 2 lengths that are coming out from the knot of the working cord here, they're kind of naturally going out to each their own side, so just keep them to those sides, separate your cords out, and then we need to build knots next to this lax head knot on both sides of it. So this is going to be the middle of it. So I'm just going to start on the one side here. I'm just taking my right one first, it doesn't really matter. Then I grab that cord, bring it back over the top of the holding cords, and then bring it back underneath there, and then make sure to pull it up through the loop of itself, and then just pull the length all the way through. So you can see it loops around the holding cords there. Then pull this tight, so this tightens right next to that lax head knot that we made to begin with. And then, that's just 1/2 of the knot. Then I bring my cord underneath from the bottom here, back over the top, and then put your fingers through the loop here on the bottom, and then pull the end of the cord all the way through. And then tighten that. And then now we basically made another lax head knot, but it's a vertical lax head knot because we're just using 1 cord to make it. But you end up with the same result here. You can see it looks exactly the same, just sitting right next to that first one. So we then want to continue making knots on this side here using that length, but we also want to make knots on the other side in the same way. So you just grab that, go over the cords first to then come below from the top, and then pull the length all the way through to create the first half of the knot. Tighten that on the side of the lax head knot, and then go below the two holding cords and then pull the length all the way through. So it's the exact same knot, we're just working on the other side with the other length of cord obviously. And then we tighten that. You can see we now have another one sitting there. So basically the goal that we have is we need to make a length of knots here, like I said, that's long enough to fit the size loop that you need. Now that depends on the button that you're using. So what I recommend that you do is that you test it as you go, or you have a length of cord and find out the size loop, and you can use that to measure with as you go here, so know when to stop. And also try and make sure that you use these two lengths somewhat evenly, so we end up with even lengths that we can then use for the rest of the bracelet. So then I have my row of knots ready here. And then to shape the loop, we just want to make sure it stays flat, but then bring the two ends together to get that loop shape. And also how you can check the size. Make sure the knots stay tightened on the ends there. So bring the two ends together right where the knots finish, and then we can check that the button fits through nicely, not too loose but not too tight. It's going to be nice and easy to use. So now what we need to do is continue from here and obviously also connect the ends together so the loop stays in this shape. So I then attached my loop here to my project macrame board, and using these T-pins is going to be easier to work with, and I'm also going to be using them throughout making the bracelet. It just prevents my work from moving around too much. And what we then have here is the 4 middle cords are the holding cords coming out from the ends of this row of knots, and the cord on either side is the long working cord that we made all these knots with. And that's where it's then been doubled over now, so we have 2 lengths to work with. But then to connect the bottom of the loop here, what I'm going to do is use these 4 cords in the middle. So I'm going to take the 2 that are closest in the middle there to each other. Then what I'm going to do is I cross my right one over my left one. You can also do opposite, it's completely up to you, but the right one comes over, so that means the left one goes underneath. That means that left one is coming underneath the other one is the first working cord. So I'm going to make a double half hitch using that around the other holding cord. So around my finger, back underneath and through the loop. So it loops around, just get the other two a bit out of the way, the holding cord like this. And now we need to tighten this, and I'm going to tighten this at a bit of an angle. So about a 90-degree angle from each other, but coming out towards the side, but not all the way out straight like this. And then these knots that we're making now in the middle here are going to fasten the loop together. Do another one to make it a double half hitch. Like that. Tighten that till it won't go any further. Then I'm going to take the other cord that's coming from that left side, underneath the current holding cord, make a double half hitch with that as well. Tighten that after the previous knot. So there we go. We now have this holding cord that we were just using for those knots coming out towards the left, originally from the right side though. And then we have these 2 cords coming from the left going towards the right. So we have one left that we haven't used yet here. That's the remaining one on the right side. Bring that over these 2 working cords that we just used. Again to come towards the left. And then we need to make another double half hitch with each of these working cords. And basically create a row right underneath the one that we just made. And the other one, make sure you take the next one available so we don't cross them over under each other. Tighten that. And now the loop is fastened in place, and we also kind of have the beginning part of our bracelet. So what I just like to do here before I make any more knots is add a couple of my small beads just for a bit of embellishment. So I'm doing that to the outermost cords. So basically the longer working cord on either side. And I'm just dropping them down to sit right down there in that corner. And now I need to start using these 2 knots, or these 2 cords rather. Obviously just do one at a time. And it doesn't matter what side you start on, but I'm just going to start on my left one here. So we have, just put these other ones out of the way. So that means I'm working with these 3 cords on the left side, the 1 working cord where I just added the bead, then these 2 holding cords that are coming out from those middle knots that we made before. So I'm going to take my working cord with the bead on underneath the middle one of the 3. So the very first holding cord. and just underneath that single one, and then I'm going to make a double half hitch and basically continue the rows that we started out right there when we connected the loop. So make a double half hitch around this first holding cord, and then when you tighten this, just make sure that bead stays in that corner and then it gets trapped in place. Tighten that. Make the other half of the knot to make it a double. Just like that. Now, to continue the next row below it, bring the working cord underneath that holding cord, and now make a double half hitch around that one. Tighten them. And then you can start to see that we're continuing the rows there from the middle, and we're also still coming out of that angle. Like that. And then to continue again, we need to change direction now. So I'm taking my working cord, bring it underneath the same holding cord that I just made a knot around. And then I make another double half hitch, but I've swapped hands now. So the same cords are still doing the same jobs, but my hands have swapped jobs, you could say. And then I tighten this. You can see it's the opposite direction that I'm tightening it in now. But I'm making sure that I hold the holding cord in the same direction so we continue the row. And then just tighten this to continue that bottom row out of the two. Go around once more to make it a double. Push that up nice and tight, and then come underneath the other holding cord to go back to continue that row. Make a double half hitch. And get tangled up here. Tighten that. We can see we're just gradually growing the rows. And then we need to change direction again. So bring the same working cord underneath the same holding cord. Swap hands. Make a double half hitch in this direction now. Tighten that. We can see the rows are getting longer and longer. And then go underneath the next holding cord to do the same again, another double half hitch. Tighten that. And there we go. You can now see we've extended the rows, but we still have two laying right underneath each other, or next to each other rather. So this is the one side, and we've ended up with the working cord coming towards the middle of the piece here. So now we can just put these out of the way because we need to move to the other side and basically do the same thing. So it just means the outer cord there is the working cord with the bead on. Bring that underneath the middle one of them. And start making your double half hitches. And as you tighten the first one, make sure that that bead stays in that little corner. Double half hitch, go underneath the next holding cord and make a double half hitch there. And then make sure when you're tightening your knots that you hold the holding cords so they come at an angle, so we end up with about a 90-degree angle between the rows on the sides here, on either side. And then you swap direction now. And basically do what I already showed you on the other side. Swap direction, this time do a double half hitch on each. And then swap direction again, and do a double half hitch. So we end up with the working cord here coming in towards the middle. So when we then got the rows here on both sides to the same point, it's time to add in the remaining of the cords. So we need to start out with the holding cords, and I grab one first of all, and again, put the ends together because we need to find that midpoint. Then I want to separate out my cords. I'm just starting on my left side, it doesn't matter. And I want to take the furthest out holding cord of those two there. Then we need to bring this midpoint, so the little loop here, underneath that holding cord. Put your fingers through and then grab hold of the ends and pull them all the way through there. and then you pull that tight. So you can see it's basically the lark's head knot. And then we need to create a bit more spacing within this knot here. So separate the two ends out. You have one more towards one side and more towards the other. So I'm just going to take one furthest towards the right here. Then I'm going to go on this right side of the knot, over the top of it, bring it back underneath, and make sure to go through the loop of itself and pull the length all the way through. And then just tighten that to go on the side of the knot. And then I take the left one and do the same thing but on the other side of the knot. So bring it over the top, back underneath, and through the loop of itself. And then tighten that on the side of the initial lark's head knot. So now we have a lark's head knot with a half hitch on either side. And all you do is push this all the way down. And basically that's now extended that outer row a bit to sit as close as you can get it. But obviously we also need to extend the row next to it. So I'm going to take the other holding cord, bring that over these two lengths, the one cord with the two lengths that I've just attached. Make sure to take the first one first and make a double half hitch around this other holding cord. So make a full double half hitch with that, and then take the other one and also do a double half hitch with that one. And then you can see we've extended the row underneath it to the same length. But we've now also managed to attach another two lengths of cord to work with. And then to do the same thing on the other side, so we have the same amount of cords. Again, grab the remaining holding cord, make sure you find the middle by putting the ends together. Keep hold of that, and then on the outer holding cord there, attach it in the same way. Bring it underneath. Put your fingers through to pull the ends all the way through the loop of itself, and then pull that tight. And then you just make a knot on either side using one cord at a time. Get it all the way around here. Pull the length through. Tighten the half hitch on the side of the lark's head knot. Do the same with the other side. And tighten that. And again, just push that all the way down to extend that outer row. And just twist it around a little bit. Push it all the way down. And then we just need to use the other holding cord below it there. Bring that over the top of them. And make a double half hitch with either of these two lengths, just like we did on the other side. So now we have our two remaining working cords left to attach here, one for either side, and also in doing that we're straight away going to get into the pattern. So I take one first of all here, and I just get to the end of it, because this one we just need to use single and not double that over. And then I get to the outer cord, and I'm just starting on the left side, it doesn't really matter, because we need to do it on the other side as well. Then bring the end there underneath the holding cord, and just keep hold of it there. Then I take the long end over the top of it, back underneath, and through the loop of itself. Just pull it all the way through. As you can see, it's kind of just twisting around. It's not actually a knot yet that we can let go of. So keep hold of that. Then I'm going to do the same thing over the top with the long end, back underneath and through the loop of itself. And pull it all the way through. And then what we're going to do is start to pull on the two ends here. There's a short end and a long end. And as we tighten them, we can start to see it's going to create the knot. That's then going to end up holding. And we can then let go. So pull them tight, and then you can push it all the way down there. Again, to extend the row, the outer one. And this little end is just going to kind of be sticking out for now. We're going to get rid of that later on. You can just kind of pin it out of the way, make it a bit easier. And then this is now going to be one of the main working cords. So we have that attached. So before I do any more with this, I just want to attach the one on the other side as well. And you simply just do that in the same way. So the outer holding cord, grab hold of that, and then we put the short end underneath it, and then take the long end over the top of it, back underneath, and then pull it through. So that's the 1/2, you could say. Do the same thing again, over the top, back underneath, and pull through. So we create this knot that we can then tighten, push it together and tighten it nicely, and then we can push it down to extend that row, and now we have it attached on this side as well. I'm just going to put this out of the way because I'm just going to continue working on one side at a time. So I'm going to go back to my left side here where I already attached that working cord on the outer holding cord, and then we need to bring it underneath the next holding cord in to continue these 2 rows that are laying next to each other. But now what we also need to do, like I said, is straight away get into the pattern of the main bracelet, which means we also need to start creating shapes and curves in these rows, because obviously we don't just want them straight the whole time. So that's what we're going to start doing now. So I'm going to first of all start making a double half hitch, but make the first half of it first, tighten that all the way down, again continuing the rows, and then now to start to be able to make a curve here on this side, what I need to do is actually swap direction within this knot. So I've made the first half, but then instead of just making another one to make it a double half hitch, I bring the working cord underneath the holding cord straight away after only making the first half. So I swap hands, and then I make the other half in the opposite direction here, but within the knot. And then I tighten that. Gonna make sure to hold that holding cord out at an angle to the side here, and then my working cord is already going in the opposite direction, so I'm just going to straight away bring it underneath the outer holding cord, sorry. And then out here I'm just going to make a normal double half hitch around this one, tighten that once more to make it a double. Tighten that. Now it can be a little bit hard to see right now, but we have started to create a curve because we changed direction within the knot, but it's only part of the curve, so I need to change direction again. So bring the working cord underneath the same holding cord, make a double half hitch in the opposite direction here, tighten that, and then bring the worker cord underneath the next holding cord, so the inner one, make the first half of the knot, tighten that, and change direction now within the knot before we make the other half. So bring it underneath straight away, the same holding cord, and then we make the other half of it here in the opposite direction. Tighten that down, and now you can slowly start to see that curve more and more, and especially when I then bring it underneath the outer holding cord to now make, just get my cord sorted out a little bit, to now make a full double half hitch on the outer one, tighten that once more for a double here, and there we go. So you can now start to see that curve, and these holding cords are now naturally following that curve, kind of wanting to come in towards the middle instead of just going straight out to the side. So that is then the curve added on this side, on the outer side of this little section. So I'm actually just going to get these other cords a little bit more out of the way, because what I then need to do is start making a curve on this inside section as well. That's equivalent still on the left side here. So I'm taking these 3 cords that are pointing more towards the opposite side there, but it's still on the left side, and before I do any knots, I also then want to add in another one of my small beads, and that's to the furthest right one, you could say, or the top one. The longest, a working cord left there, because that's what we need to start making knots with. So I'm just going to add a bead onto the end of that, and then let it drop all the way down to sit where it won't go any further, basically. And then I need to start making knots here, again starting to create that curve in the same way, but obviously it's on the opposite side here to this first one. So bring the working cord with the bead underneath the middle one of these 3 cords, so the first holding cord, make a double half hitch around it, make sure that bead stays in that corner and gets trapped in place. Full double half hitch there, then go underneath the next holding cord with the working cord, start your knot, tighten that first half, and now to do the same thing to create that curve we need to swap direction straight away within the knot before making the other half. So bring it underneath that same holding cord and then make the other half of it in the opposite direction, and then tighten it. Then bring the working cord underneath the outer holding cord and make a full double half hitch here. So another one to make it a double, just like that. And then for right now we need to leave it at this point here. So I haven't completed the curve on this side that's equivalent to the other side there to create this little twist first of all, because before we can do that we need to get the other side here to the same point. So I'm just going to put these ones out of the way now and move over to the other side and start basically doing the same thing. So that means first of all just releasing my cords, and then I like to start with the outer ones because that's where we attach the cord as well. And I kind of like to just continue with that. We attach the extra working cord. So do the same thing. That's already got basically a double half hitch by attaching it on the outer holding cord. Then we start the knot on the next holding cord in. Tighten that first half. Change direction within the knot. To get that curve going, bring it underneath the outer holding cord and make a full double half hitch. Tighten that. Do the other half. Just make sure your rows are sitting nicely. Change direction, because that's kind of just the beginning of the curve. So underneath the same holding cord straight away to make the next full double half hitch, because we're always making the double half hitches, the full ones, on the outer row, you could say, and it's the inner ones where we change direction within the knot, which then creates that curve underneath the inner holding cord. Start your knot and change direction within it. And then make a double half hitch, a full one, around the outer one here. And then you can see we have equivalent curve on this side as we did on the first one that I did on the opposite side there. So that's the outer one. And then we just need to do the inner one on this side as well. But first of all, remember, if you want to add in these little beads, add that first and let it drop all the way down to sit in the same place as on the opposite side. And then we take this working cord with the bead on, bring it underneath the middle one of the 3, so the first holding cord. Make sure that bead gets stuck in that little corner. Go underneath the next holding cord in. and this is where we need to make the curve. So I start the knot and then change direction within it. Like that. Go underneath the other holding cord and make a full one here. And then once we've done that, we've ended up in the same position as on the left side, where we haven't completed the inner curves there on either side. So what we need to do now, the reason that we're not completing them is because we need to add in a large beads in the middle in the process of that to make them sit in between the two sides here. So that means I want to grab one of my 6mm rounds, and then we need to find the two cords that we need to add through the hole. So that's the working cord on either side of these inner groups of 3. So these two right there, they're basically closest to each other right there in the middle. Then I just take one first of all, get to the end of it, and then add the bead onto that, and then bring it down a little bit. It's a bit manageable. Then I take the length from the opposite side, also that working cord, and then I want to bring that through the same bead there but in the opposite direction, which is why we need to make sure the holes are large enough to be able to take 2 lengths of cord through in whatever beads you're using. So we now have the bead attached going through, well, both cords going through there, and then we just pull at them to get it all the way down and sit in between these two sides. And now basically these two cords as well have actually swapped sides by going through the bead and just working on one side at a time. They're going to basically be doing the same thing as they would have if we haven't added the bead, but they've just swapped sides in doing it. So we then take the working cord that's going through the bead now towards the left, actually from the right, but going towards the left now. Bring it underneath the first of the holding cords to now complete this little curve that we didn't finish before. So on the outer one here, I make a full double half hitch. And make sure as well that the bead is tight so we don't have any loose cord in between the bead and these outer sections. So just make the other half to make it a double, like that. And then bring the working cord underneath the next holding cord in. Start your knot. And then to continue that curve, this is where we need to change direction within the knot. So straight away bring it underneath the same holding cord and make the other half in the other direction. So like that. Then bring it underneath the outer holding cord again. And make a full double half hitch now. And then you can see we've actually now completed the curve on this side. So what we can do now is attach this fully, finish this little first twist. So to do that we need to use the 2 holding cords from either side of these that are also naturally, you can see, kind of wanting to cross over each other. So first of all we need to start with the inner one from either side. So the 2 that are right closest to each other, right in the middle. Then I take my right one, cross that over the left one to get the same twist effect the whole way through on this side. Then the one that's coming from the left is going underneath, that's the working cord, so make a double half hitch with that. And what we're doing now is basically replicating what we did when we attached the loop together there. Double half hitch to continue the row as well. Do the next one from that left side, make it double half hitch. And then we take the other holding cord from the right there, bring it over the 2 working cords, and then make a double half hitch with each of them again. So we also continue to have those 2 rows next to each other. Double half hitch with the first one, and then a double half hitch with the second one. And then when we've done that, we have this little first twist complete. And it then looks like that. Just separate these cords back up to this side. So I can then move to the other side and do the same. So that's obviously the other cord that's coming through the bead from the original left side, but now towards the right here. Bring it underneath the first holding cord. Make your double half hitch. Because this is the outer row in this little twist section. And then bring it underneath the next holding cord, separate them out a little bit here so I don't pick the wrong cord. And then to complete the curve on this side, we do the same that I just did on the other side, but obviously we're just working kind of mirrored because it's the opposite side that we're working on. Change direction within the knot by bringing it underneath the same holding cord straight away. And then make the other half of the knot, tighten that underneath the outer holding cord to make a full double half hitch, and then tighten that, and then again just going to make sure that I have all the cords separated properly. So we can see the curve there on either side, with the holding cords from either side then naturally wanting to cross over each other. And again we're going to do the same thing here, but because this is on the other side, what I like to do is make the opposite ones look like they're overlapping. So here the ones from the right look like they're going over, and the ones from the left look like they're going under. On this side I like to do opposite. So that means I need to take, again I'm working with the two holding cords from either side there, I then take the ones from the left, start with the middle ones there, the left one goes over the right one now, so the right one is coming underneath and it's the first working cord, and you then just make a double half hitch with that, tighten that, to obviously also connect those two sides together, the two curves, and then take the other holding cord from the right side there, and then you can start to see that it's going to appear that the rows from the left are crossing over and the rows from the right are crossing under. Take the remaining holding cord from that left side to also continue that other row right below it. And then the last one, do your double half hitch. Tighten that, and then we have both sides done, and we also now have a first bead added right there in between them. So that is basically how we make the main part of the bracelet here. We now just keep repeating this. Obviously the only difference is we don't need to add the cord, the working cord, like we did right up here in the beginning. We now just need to keep using the one that's already added. So the first thing I do is, if you want to add those small beads, I also like to add them on the outer edge from now on. I separate out this outer cord because that's the working cord. You can add your bead onto that and let it drop all the way down. And then I also like to add the bead on the inner one straight away, just so I know and make sure that I don't forget it by getting caught up with making knots, but I actually know I remember to add the bead. And of course also let that drop all the way down. So these two beads on this side are now ready there waiting for me to just make knots. And usually I also add the ones on the other side, but I'm just going to show you how to get started here, because like I said, it's pretty much the same thing from now on. The only difference is now obviously all the cords are already attached, which only really makes it easier. So just on this left side where I've added my beads, I just take the outer length with the bead on here. That's basically equivalent to the one that we attached, where how we attached it was using a double half hitch. So now we just need to make a double half hitch with that straight away. So bring it all the way around here, and it's a full double half hitch. Make sure that bead gets trapped in that corner. And this knot that we've just done here is basically equivalent to the one where we attached it originally. Underneath the inner one are the two holding cords. And this is where we need to straight away start making the curve. So do 1/2 of the knot, then change direction within it. To then tighten the other half. And then go on the outer one again and do the full double half hitch. And as you can probably tell, this is now the exact same that we did when we created the top ones there. Like I said, the only difference is we're not having to add in the cord, but it's still just doing a double half hitch to begin with. So otherwise now it's the exact same. Here you want to complete the outer curve, then we make half of the curve on the inner group there on this left side, making sure the working cord comes towards the other side. And then on the other side here we get to the same point, and then once you have those two inner groups, half of the curve made, that's when we add in that large bead in the middle, cross through it, and then we finish up the curves and then connect them in the middle. Exactly how I showed you up here, and you just keep repeating this until you have the length that you need. So I now kept going here and I reached the length that I want, and where I've ended up is I've added the last bead there in the middle, and then I've also made those sections, the twist sections on the side, except I haven't connected them on the bottom yet. So if I just separate my cords out, you can see they're still open because we need to connect them a little bit differently than we have done throughout. And we then also got to start getting rid of some of the cords here because we need to start finishing it off. Now because we need to do the same thing on both sides, I'm just going to show you on the one here. So we still just have to add one of our small beads. So I've already added that now just to make sure I don't forget. And that's to the same inner cord there as we have done throughout, as if we're going to do another section. And what I'm also going to just do actually is just get these other ones out of the way so they don't get in my way so much. Like that. So the first thing we're going to do is just connect this little twist section. So that means I'm going to use the 4 holding cords in the middle. And like I said, we need to just do it a bit differently than we've done throughout. Normally, I'd bring the right one over the left one. So here we need to do opposite. So I'm going to take, again working with the 2 middle ones first of all. I'm going to take the left one in this case and bring it over the right ones. And then that left one, coming from the left side towards the right, is now the holding cord, and the other 2 are going to be the working cords. So all it's going to do is make it appear that it's now the left ones crossing over the right ones, using both of those working cords from the right side. So like that. Then we also need to use the other one from the left there as a holding cord. But before we make the knots around this one, we also need to start finishing off some of the cords. So what I'm going to actually do is the furthest left cord here, that's a working cord I put out of the way, I'm actually going to bring that in with the holding cord. So I now have 2. And then I'm going to take that first working cord that's still coming underneath and make my double half hitch around both of them as if they were just one. Tighten that all the way down so that now captures both of them. Just like that. Then what I'm going to do is separate them out again. And now I'm going to take my scissors and cut off one of these lengths, just one of the holding cords, to basically get rid of one. You can choose whichever one you think would work best. Get it close to the knot that you made, like that. And now to make the next knot, so I have that holding cord left, but I then need to bring in the other cord furthest out one, the one that I just used to make the knot with. Bring that in the exact same way. So I again have 2 now. Then we take the other working cord, make a knot with. Now if you have a little end there, what I like to try and do is just catch that as well, just to make sure it gets trapped inside of the knot, if you can. Like that. Tighten that. Do one more for the double half hitch. And there we go. Now we've captured those 2 in place. And then I'm again going to take my scissors here and cut off one of them, because what we're actually doing now is when bringing them in and making the knots, we're trapping some of these cords within the knot so we can cut them off and they won't unravel. So just cut off. Make sure it's just the one length, not cut off anything else by accident. Like that. And now is then when we need to use the other working cord, so the one where I added the bead onto the inner one. So first of all, I'm going to bring that underneath the first holding cord there to continue these rows that we're making, and we need to make a straight row just like we did in the beginning. So make a double half hitch, make sure that that bead gets stuck in that corner if you're using those beads, obviously. Double half hitch, then bring it underneath the next one. Make sure to capture that little end if you can. And then we still have this outer cord left that I want to bring in and also capture in place and secure so we can finish off. Then make a double half hitch around both of them. The exact same way as before. Try and capture that little end. If you have any little ends sticking out at the end as well, you can also just, it's not too big of a deal if you do have them sticking out. You can deal with them later on. Make a double half hitch around both of them. And again, go in and cut off one of them. Like that. And then to continue the rows, I'm going to keep using that same working cord, so bring it underneath the same holding cord and do a double half hitch in the opposite direction. Again, I want to try and catch that little end if I can. Make your double half hitch. Just trying to capture that end. There we go. Tighten that. Then bring it underneath the inner holding cord. So you can see we're now working on just extending these two rows next to each other. Change direction again. Double half hitch. Underneath the next one. Make your double half hitch again, because we need these lengths now to be the same length as the rows we did right in the beginning before actually making the main part of the bracelet, right after we made that loop. And also then having the working cord coming out in this direction, kind of away from the piece. So this is how we then need to end up on this side. Now obviously, release the other ones, and you just want to now do exactly the same on the other side as well. So get all these cords to the same place. But obviously this side is just in a mirrored image. Once the two sides now meet in the middle there, you can see the cords are now naturally wanting to cross over each other. We just need to connect them as well, so they're not open like that. So we do that the same as every other connection point. In my case I just take my right one, comes over the left ones, and then I use the first left one there, comes underneath as a working cord, make a double half hitch to continue the row from the right. So it's going to end up looking like the right ones here crossing over the left ones. And then the next one, do your double half hitch, grab the other holding cord from that side. So it's just like all the other connection points as well, just in the middle here on the end. And the final one, double half hitch. And now they're nicely connected. So now we have to get to the point where we need to add in the button on the end, so we can obviously use that in combination with the loop. So the 4 cords that I just used to connect, they are kind of going to be holding cords now. I have the one on either side as the working cords. So what I'm going to do is actually bring them down and make just some basic square knots around all these holding cords. So like that. Tighten that all the way up, right below that little point. So that's one half, and then do the other half. So make sure the first half is tightened. And that kind of gathers all the cords together. Now what I like to do is just make a few knots here to create a bit of distance before I actually add the button on, because otherwise that will overlap some of this. So I like to make around 3 of these square knots before I then add the button in. Once I then have them, I then take my holding cords in and put my button onto all of them. Let it drop down. Now because this is the front of the bracelet, I want to make sure obviously the button, the right side is facing in that right direction. And then push it all the way up to right below those knots. Then I use the same working cords here, and I'm just going to make a couple square knots below the knot. So just make the first one here. So basically kind of like when adding in a bead when doing square knots. Just get it through there. That's gonna basically cage. Make sure you tighten it underneath. And not like that. It's gonna cage it in place and kind of trap it there, so it's gonna sit right in between some knots. Now like I said, make a full square knot here, and I like to make about 2 knots after the button rather than just the one. It's a little bit more secure. So now I have my button securely in place there. I then just need to finish off the ends of the cord. So make sure that your knots here are nice and tight. And then what I'm going to do, because I'm using a synthetic cord here, I'm going to singe the ends down. You can also add glue around where the knot is and the cord's coming out from and then cut them off. That's completely up to you. But like I said, I'm using this cord so I can singe the ends down. So what I'm going to do is cut off the excess. I'm just going to start with these holding cords. But I'm going to make sure to leave a couple millimeters from where they're coming out from the knot. Something like that. And then get rid of the excess. Then I take a lighter. Now be careful because obviously it's a naked flame and it does get hot. And then you want to just basically melt those very ends of the cord down towards the knot. And then I also like to either use a lighter on my finger here and press against to kind of help smooth it out, but also secures it more in place. So it gets rid of them nicely, but it also kind of seals the ends in place. And of course, I then do the same with the other ones as well. So just cut off the excess, leave that a couple of millimeters or so, and then just singe it down. Until you feel like they're all, you've gotten rid of the cords, but then they're still all nice and secure. Because obviously we do want it to last. And this really does seal all the cords in place. Now, you can then do the same on this end, because we left those little tails when we attached a cord. Just do the same to finish these ones off. And then also, where mentioned down here when we were finishing them off and kind of capturing them within the knots, if you have any little ends sticking out, you can also singe them down a little bit if it's needed. So now that all the ends are finished off here, then this is what it looks like. The bracelet is finished. And of course we then have the loop and the button ready to just use nice and easily like that. And then your complete bracelet is ready to wear. So I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial for how to make this double twist macrame bracelet. Now if you do decide to make it, I would love to see it. So what you can do is share it with me on social media. Now links to all the ones that I'm on in the description box down below. And also make sure you check out my channel for loads of other macrame tutorials. I have a whole playlist just with that. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.